Okay, perfect. So let me start. So, thanks everyone. Welcome to Understanding the Potential of AI for Your Business. A few words about who we are. We're the Tesseract Academy and Consulting. We're a forward-thinking organization whose mission is to help entrepreneurs, senior professionals, and businesses get started with the AI. So in the Tesseract Academy, our main objective is to, let me type URL, to help senior professionals and leaders become more competitive in the AI race, but there's also a sister company dealing with AI implementation. So if you considering using AI within your business and you wanted someone to do for you, then the consulting company is the branch of the business that deals with this. But if you care more about just learning how you could apply some of those things yourself, then the academy is the place where you should be at. And today we're going to cover some of the fundamental principles of how to apply AI in your business. And towards the end, there are also going to be some freebies that we will share with you. So in terms of who I am, I'm the CEO of the company. I've been in the space for more than a decade. I'm a published author with 3 books to my name. And I'm also very happy to have Ferry with me, another doctor in this group, who is an impact entrepreneur with extensive experience in corporate transformation, entrepreneurship, early stage ventures across different sectors in technology, with a career spanning multiple decades. And very happy to have here with us today. So in terms of who this presentation is for, this is for entrepreneurs, CEOs, C-suite, mid-level managers, and pretty much any decision maker who wants to get a better understanding of how AI can be leveraged for better results. This event is going to go for about 45 minutes to an hour, and there's going to be a Q&A in the end. If you have a specific question, just feel free to type into the chat and we will address all that towards the end. We'll try to provide as much information as possible within the time we have for this webinar. But as I mentioned, there's also going to be some giveaways towards the end of this presentation. And if you're interested in applying AI for your business, you're going to find them very, very useful. So in terms of the current rise of artificial intelligence, this is primarily driven by large language models. So this is what ChatGPT burst onto the scene like a year and a half ago. And AI for, let's say, decades was considered, let's say, a problem not, in a sense, unsolved. Right? And however, ChatGPT essentially gave a breath of life in this sector. And since then, we've seen a flood of investment, as well as we've seen a lot of improvements in terms of functionality. So the market growth is astounding, with the AI market projected to grow at 38% CAGR, reaching over $1 trillion by 2030. And obviously, this presents threats and opportunities. Right? So this presents opportunities for those entrepreneurs or businesses that make the most of AI, or even for those who want to start their own AI business. At the same time, there are threats to business models that are going to be disrupted by artificial intelligence. And Ferry, would you like to share a few thoughts and a few pieces of information around Gen AI and a recent article by Gartner discussing whether it's all hype or not?
Thanks a lot, Stelios. Before I delve into this fairly recent study and some of my, I would say, critical notes on this, or insights that might be useful for our audience today, I will draw on 3, I guess, chapters in my life, which hopefully allows you to understand where I'm coming from or where my experience comes from. So I've put that I'm a doctor. I won't put that on when I'm hopping on an airplane, but it's really my 5 years in academia in the Netherlands, where I basically got grounded and started working with data, qualitative data, so understanding how people work together in high-tech manufacturing. So I've got that grounding, hence my PhD doctor title. I then emigrated to the UK, and I've got experience in corporate transformation in the energy sector and corporate venturing, so starting new businesses, driving new revenue growth and technology development in the smart homes IoT space in one of the largest UK energy companies. Last 10 years I've actually spent with tech founders who are trying to solve a meaningful problem across a range of domains. And what we're now seeing is that every single domain in our lives are affected by, call it a hype, but at least it's a new way of making our lives easier, or unearthing new ways of driving customer revenues and solving really wicked problems of our time. So what I'm going to be doing at this point is give you some critical, I guess, notes and questions for you to become aware of, because what has been driving me in my journey is I'm really trying to keep myself grounded in this craze, I would say, and the overwhelming amount of information and tools that are emerging, and I'm trying to carve out a way how can that be useful for myself personally and in my business and for my clients and partners. So with that said, generative AI, all hype or not, obviously that's very it's not a binary question. It's not all hype, and it is also a bit sometimes ridiculous how much we've been overwhelmed with the promise of AI, but it's real. Certainly, what I take away from the recent Gartner survey that asked 400 CEOs, is AI, is the breakthrough, is it justify the hype that we've got? And what we're now seeing is that CEOs, leadership teams are definitely paying attention to this significantly. What's really important, and I'm not only talking about big companies. I know our audience today come from all sorts of different organizations, and size, company size is but one thing. So hopefully we can see how we can actually start using it and reflecting on it. So what stood out for me was there's two things that they're chasing, which is productivity, so cost savings, doing things faster or with fewer resources or more with the same resources, and actually revenue gains. So what is interesting to note is that the technology is actually is bolted, or the cart before the horse, in the sense that they're pursuing and putting a lot of investments in AI, but they don't know really how they're going to get it, and whether it's on the cost savings or revenue side. What is also interesting to note is that, okay, how do you start engaging with AI besides, start using ChatGPT on a personal level, getting more emails out of the door, or basically writing your emails without errors. That's how you often start. But more importantly, half of the CEOs are leaning on their CIO, the technical teams in their organization to really lead this. And that's both understandable, but also quite risky, I would say. We can delve into that a little bit later on in the presentation. That if you allow that to happen by too few people in the organization, you're going to miss out, or you're going to make potentially costly mistakes. So I would like to later on delve into that, how we can become aware of what could go wrong, and how via a number of simple measures you could basically be more certain about achieving some of the promise that generative AI definitely has for most organizations. So with that said, over to the next slide, please.
Perfect. So yeah, thanks, Ferry. And over the course of this presentation, hopefully we'll provide some clarity to some of these questions. Before we move on to some tips around strategy and how to think about AI, we just wanted to share a few AI companies which are worth keeping your eye on. Obviously, OpenAI is one. Hugging Face is another one which is not very famous outside of data scientist circles, but Hugging Face is the go-to source for open source large language models. So if you're interested in a bespoke LLM implementation, either because you care a lot about privacy or because you want to generate your own IP, it's quite likely that your data scientists are going to end up using Hugging Face. And we've actually done a lot of work with Hugging Face models as well as part of our consulting services. So it's good to keep an eye on what's going on there. Runway ML is another very interesting company. It's probably more interesting for those who are in the media space because the product deals with video generation for the entertainment sector. But what is special about Runway ML is that it's actually quite impressive. So it's even if you're not part of the entertainment sector, I think what they're doing is very good exposition of capabilities in this area. Then Anthropic is an AI safety and research company by former OpenAI researchers. They are competing in certain ways with OpenAI, and they're part of this whole um, artificial general intelligence competition race. And then there are some other, let's say, lesser known ones, a bit more specialized, like Cohere AI 21 Labs, as well as Stability AI. And obviously, if you do a bit more digging, you're going to find a few more. And it's often the case that some of the more niche companies, compared to, let's say, OpenAI and ChatGPT, they might actually be better. Like the products might actually be better in certain areas, whether it's writing code or a copilot or whatever. And now let's move on to some, let's say, tips around how to choose the right tool for the job. So it's important to understand that for the last 10 years or so, before AI became the dominant term in this market, data science and big data were the most important terms. And to a large extent, the AI hype has created a rising tide, which has made all these technologies more popular. And for many businesses, in reality, what they need is essentially traditional machine learning, traditional data science. So in this presentation, we're going to touch obviously upon more AI and Gen AI as well, traditional machine learning and traditional data science. So it's important to, in order to be able to better understand what kind of tool you need and what kind of approach you need and not to get trapped in the hype, first of all, it's important to understand that within data science, within machine learning, there are three main applications: descriptive analytics, predictive, and prescriptive, which we'll go in more depth in that in a second. In terms of AI, there's obviously a very big list, and there's a lot of text on this slide. You don't have to read all of it because we're going to share the slides with you after the presentation. But with regards to AI, whereas data science is more focused on prediction for the most part, it looks like most of the use cases, they relate to automation, a lot of it having something to do with language. And if you think about it, and what has the current hype around artificial intelligence is primarily focused on generative AI, with most of the things happening around natural language, whether it's writing text, interacting with a large language model like ChatGPT, or generating um, audio, images, video by using language. Or the other aspect is more around media generation that is improving on generated videos and things like that. So in terms of use cases, it's like countless. And again, I don't expect anyone to just go through the slide within a minute. We're going to be sharing some of this information with you after the presentation. And this is really part of the freebies which I promised are going to follow after the end of this presentation. So with regards to the types of data science, there's as I mentioned, there are three types. One is descriptive data science / analytics, which is things like Excel dashboards. And quite often, this is what most businesses need. And this is where actually a business should start with. Most businesses should start with this type of thing, whether they care about AI or whether they care about actual data science. Because first of all, you need to have a 360-degree view of your data and what's going on within your business on a very simple level. And once that level is there, then you can look into AI or more advanced data science. And what we found in practice is that most businesses, they need to, well, they get a lot of value out of more traditional predictive applications. So things like forecasting, predicting customer churn, fraud detection, predictive maintenance. So this, let's say, niche within data science deals with 80% of the applications out there, which this is also referred to as narrow AI, where you use data to train an algorithm in order to make predictions or automate the process. Okay, so if you already have access to data, whether it's your business data or some external data source, it's quite likely that you can develop some of these applications. And keep in mind that what I'm describing here is not competing with AI, right? It's just a different layer of applications. And quite often, the current developments in AI, they facilitate the creation of these types of applications and products because the current AI makes it easier to digest data and make sense of this data. It makes it easier to get to start with descriptive analytics, which then leads you to this step. And finally, we have prescriptive data science and analytics. And this is about automation, right? And I think that with the current state of AI, a lot of businesses are looking into this again, essentially having an AI control the end-to-end process. There's still obviously ethical considerations and a lot of risk in the sense that you still cannot fully trust what an AI is doing. But regardless, there are a lot of benefits of having a fully automated system, at least for parts of your operations, whether it's supply chain, energy management, etc. This type of application, however, is usually best reserved for very big organizations. So I'd say if you're part of a smaller business, this descriptive analytics is the place to start, and then potentially some other applications in terms of AI automation, as well as potentially predictive applications. With regards to AI, a benefit of the current hype is there are so many tools competing that it's very easy to get started with some of those use cases we mentioned. So there is a list, again, which we're going to provide to you as part of our freebies at the end of this presentation, with various AI tools that you can use for anything from creativity to writing to you're looking for a job, updating your CV, and many other use cases. And as you see, we cover close to 10 different categories. And because there's so many things going on, we even create a visualization that we're going to share later. So interactive visualization, which can help you understand which tools you need at what stage of your business. In terms of choosing the right tools, if you want to get started with AI and there's like one slide to take with you after this presentation, this would probably be the best one. We've created this flow chart, which takes into account, it's like a very simple flow chart, but it takes into account all the essential elements that a decision maker needs to consider when making a decision around different AI tools and how to use them. Obviously, if you're not familiar with some of those tools, and I assume you most likely are not, it might be difficult to make this decision, but this is where we can help you through a free consultation, which is going to, which you can book for this consultation after the end of this presentation. And this is also interactive visualization. I promise this is just a screenshot. I'll be sharing the link to this after this presentation. So depending on the stage your company is at, maybe you're managing an enterprise corporation, or you're in your own startup, or you want, for example, to work in the area of you care about AI and has certain knowledge, something like perplexity.ai, etc. You can find the right tool for you, right? So we cover tools which, depending on the size of, essentially we categorize the tools depending, using the size as the key factor. And the circle here referring to both essentially refers to tools which are probably useful for both the enterprise sector and startups. And again, we will be sharing a link to this presentation towards the end. So in terms of when AI is worth investment, that's, I guess, something which each organization has to think differently about this, depending on the strategic goal, the resources, and the competition. In terms of developing new AI solutions, and Ferry will talk about IP and how you can protect your IP in the era of AI. it's clear that developing novel AI solutions can provide a competitive edge, especially in industries where innovation becomes very important. However, innovation can often be risky and it might require a lot of resources. That's why what we usually propose to our clients is to go for a soft innovation. So don't try to create your own LLM. If you want to create your own AI, maybe you use an open source model from Hugging Face and we can fine tune it for you. So then you can go back to your investors and claim that you're using AI and you have your own IP. In terms of cost reduction and efficiency, AI is definitely worth investment. And the tools we presented earlier and we're going to share with you are probably the best way to go about it for most businesses. And then obviously in terms of enhanced data analysis, that's like another benefit that needs to be considered, that it's easier than ever to get started with descriptive analytics and start mapping your organization's data, as long as you know how to interact with some tools like Microsoft's Copilot or ChatGPT and so on and so forth. So in this case, the ROI is kind of no-brainer. The main challenge being that you still need to have, let's say, the people in place that know how to use with these tools. But it goes without question that there are a lot of that essentially AI lowers the barriers to entry to all kinds of analytics applications and data science applications, as we discussed earlier on. Yep, Fer, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Stelios. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about briefly is to enable you to ask yourself some questions that you might not immediately, when you're busy with an AI tool or solution, ask yourself. In this case, the starting point is AI development and adoption making you more successful at raising investment, improve valuations, or drive revenue, right? Or more long-term customer satisfaction. And the observation I want to make is here that it's possibly, but don't jump just on the bandwagon, because customers and investors and regulators set the bar now much higher in terms of, if you claim to have, you're using AI for a specific purpose. And what's really important is it's really boring, but and usually it's outsourced to some auditors or some specific company functions. The risks are really changing in terms of, if you adopt something, if you develop something that uses data in your company, of your suppliers, of your customers, of your staff, what that means is that how are you gonna basically weave it all together? You've got the access to the tool, you start using it, you put your data in. How are you going to make that work across all your potentially fragmented functions and teams and departments? So if you're being asked, or you're seeing, okay, but this is going to definitely generate a real great customer growth or a cost saving, committing to what it will be much more difficult to do if you don't follow a certain structured approach. And I'll give you an example. So you might be aware that in the US and the EU, and in different states in the US, and I'm sure in other jurisdictions as well, the AI Act, what is the responsibility of creators, users, third-party data sets? What are your responsibilities? That is a real jungle. And how do you stay up to date about that? It starts with asking yourself the question, what could be the risk or exposure of me using that? Now, I'm not saying to go through all that effort by saying, oh, I'm using Grammarly, what is the risk? But I gave you an anecdote. Right when OpenAI or ChatGPT was launched, everyone was putting their CVs in. And where did the data go? Well, it didn't stay on your computer. It was sucked into the broader data set and the training of algorithms that OpenAI was performing. So you have to ask yourself, where is my data residing? What is the risk and the exposure I have? Another topic that we haven't talked about, but how do you understand the nature of bias in, again, in data sets? Often you would think, well, that's the responsibility of the data scientist, and they care about that. But I would argue that actually everyone in the company that has a role in terms of user or a responsibility of deploying this has to become critical and be aware that these are relevant questions to continuously revisit. Now, I would say that, just to wrap up this slide, that AI has the capacity for differentiation and, sorry, you need to have the capacity to be able to achieve differentiation and execution. And what does that mean is you cannot leave it to one person in your organization to do this. So start asking yourself, how can we educate? What does everyone at a minimum needs to know? And this is fast changing. So this is not like, okay, in 2 years we'll come to that. It has to become ingrained in the running of your organization. So team and skill sets matters. It's not just AI developers or chief AI officers or CTOs. Ask yourself the question, what should everyone know in order to deliver on your organization mission and the increasing pressures of regulation and other expectations from customers and competitors. So next slide, please. I'll run through this just to you'll get the slides, so it becomes accessible afterwards. So obviously you need to have data if you want to use AI for enhancing your organization's either cost or revenue, customer satisfaction, or some other organizational goal. That's really important, and we can help you with. Sometimes people don't realize on how much data they actually have access to. So that's also a really important early stage. Another important recommendation is you need to have a flexible business strategy. Gone are the days that we do long-term planning and we have a really a great granular plan. Things change. AI allows you to uncover unexpected patterns in wherever you apply it, which may force you or give you the opportunity to change in part your business strategy. We covered with Stelios earlier around predictive models, prescriptive models, automating processes, and your customer or your user experiences. I have to reiterate, keep your feet on the ground. Don't be anxious in terms of the fear of missing out. Be systematic in understanding when you do go on that journey is to break it down into manageable, I would say, commitments to expenditure and costs that you may incur or you commit to in the longer term by going certain ways with generative AI. We can help with making sense of what does that mean in terms of, oh, I need to hire people who know this. That can be done in a variety of ways. And due diligence on who you hire in-house or outside is incredibly important, certainly because data scientists can command a high salary and fees and consultants. So I'm glad we are really reasonable from that point of view. So next slide, please. A very brief, this is just to highlight the topic of developing and protecting IP for those who are interested. I'm actually quite skeptical about AI and developing. It's not only developing and protecting IP, it's then what do you do with it? If your strategy is to develop IP and then sell it off, that's one thing. But if you are saying, look, for us, it's just a tool to achieve our organizational goals, be very careful in overly pursuing that. There's a lot of movement. What was a great competitive advantage 6 months ago is no longer. So I would just be very sitting on an active fence, so to speak. and really look at your, I would say, more narrow, deep applications where you think you have something unique that other organizations don't have, or that really make a real difference for your stakeholders and your customers. As I said before, we are working with a number of partners who keep doing a really good job in just keeping track what's happening out there on the regulatory point of view. I wouldn't be able to do this all by myself. So the lesson here is choose your partners for specific, developments and decision making very carefully. But certainly on the IP laws, regulations, a lot is actually happening and creating some really unexpected exposure to new responsibilities you have to be mindful of for your organization. So thank you very much.
Perfect. And as we reach the end of this presentation, it's also important to mention about AI ethics, which this used to be an afterthought. And then GDPR came along, and ever since we witnessed this explosion of applications in AI, especially generative AI, it seems like this is going into the forefront to the extent that many organizations, especially those of bigger size, will need to worry about the legal repercussions of any models they use. So Ferry also touched upon some of those aspects. It's obviously a very long conversation, but within the Tesseract Academy, we have frameworks and the tools to help you navigate this landscape. So if you're interested in learning more about this, just feel free to shoot us a message or book a call with us. And as we reach the end of this presentation, I promised some freebies, and I'm going to be sharing these during and after the Q&A session. You're all going to be receiving an email with these so that you can access this framework as well as the AI tools list, which we discussed during the presentation. And here's like our contact information if you want to learn more about us. And thank you so much for staying with us until the end. And again, sorry about the confusion with the timing and the time would start. But I'm happy that at least 25 of you managed to make it. And now we're open to questions. So yeah, let me stop sharing my screen. Are there like any questions? Let me check the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to just write in the chat. Or if you don't want to write, like feel free to unmute yourselves and just speak. Yes, thank you, Anna. Thank you. And if you want to see the interactive list of tools, you can find it here. If you want to get the full list, just get in touch. The link I just shared, and everyone will be receiving this via email. Will allow you to get access to the framework as well as book a call with us. So if you're interested in implementing AI in your business, you can get some free tips as to what's the best way to do it. And you can also learn more about how we can help you. So if there are no questions, then I think that was it. So thank you very much. Make sure to visit our website to also find news about other events we're organizing. And we hope to see you again soon. We are organizing another event in a couple of weeks, I believe, and around the use of AI in the Middle East. So we hope to be seeing you there. So thank you very much and speak soon. Thank you, Tammy.